Buddhism, we look at life and death, just like the story of Kisāgotamī. When we look at life, we just don't see the form only, but we understand the meaning of it. What causes it to come to existence? And what can cause it to move out of existence? Kisāgotamī, she had a baby, the only child that she had died. And she was so crazed with grief, she didn't know what to do. She wanted her child to be alive again. So she went to everybody in that town for help. And somebody was gracious enough to point her to the Buddha because they couldn't help her. They didn't know how to bring her child back to life. So she went to the Buddha, and the Buddha didn't give her any teachings, but told her to say, I will save your child under one condition. If you can find one mustard seed, bring it to me. But not only mustard seed, but it needs to come from a family who has never experienced death. She was so happy she didn't hear the last part. She only heard about getting a mustard seed to the Buddha. She went throughout town to ask for a mustard seed, but everybody say, I have mustard seed to give you, but my grandfather just died, my mother just died, my uncle, and so forth. So everybody she went to, somebody has experienced some sort of death in the family. Then she learned the lessons that death comes to all. And she finally was willing to give up her death child in the forest and went back to the Buddha and said, Lord, give me a refuge. And then she became a nun. So this story may seem very simple. Well, what can we learn from this? What do you think Kisāgotamī learned that had enlightened her? Why all of a sudden that she became enlightened? We heard the story, we've seen death, but yet we are not enlightened. So from this story, what can we learn? What do we really need to learn to become enlightened? And what do you think she had learned to help her become enlightened?
She learned to let go.
Yeah, obviously at the end she let go, but what's behind that? What can we learn from that? We learn to let go, but then it doesn't work for us. So what's the Buddhist teachings here? Besides of letting go, what is it that can help us to get closer to enlightenment? We're not enlightened yet, but what is it that we can learn from this story that can help us to get closer to the teachings of the Buddha, the real meaning of his teaching? She had a dead baby. Everybody she talked to had some sort of death in the family. And then she came to realization, and then she let go. She was able to let go. How? What was going on in her head that she was able to let go? So we go back to the Buddha's teachings. And his teaching is what Mr. Chen reminds us often enough that we should understand from this story. The teaching of the Buddha is conditionality, right? Yuan Qi Fa, Fa Yun Kai. What is the conditionality in this story? Well, it's not just observing death. It's not just about letting go. But she realized that in the law of conditionality, understanding it means that she understands what can create life. She also understands how to prevent suffering from occurring. She understands that life is because of desire. So we don't just let go, we understand what has brought us here, because our desire for something, that has brought us here. But if we don't want to have that, then we should cut off that desire. Not to destroy it, but to prevent it from happening. Right? She realizes that life has brought us here because of some force that has brought us here. And we are the source of that force, generating a force that to bring us here. But if we don't like what we see, then we should create the conditions so that things don't occur again. Does that make sense? Right? From this story, it's not just about letting go, and it's not just about, oh, everybody faces death. But why? What causes death? And how can we prevent death from occurring? When we say preventing death from occurring, doesn't mean you destroy this body or you evade this body, you go to somewhere. but to provide the conditions so that you don't encounter it. So in other words, escaping from the cycle of life and death does not mean you run away to somewhere, but to have no fear, because through your clear understanding of why things happen. And if you don't like what you have, then you put in the conditions to change it. And so when she realizes conditionality, that's when she's willing to let go. Right? When we understand something, then it's very easy to let go. But we're forcing ourselves to let go. As long as we have the energy to force ourselves to let go, we can let go, but eventually it'll spring back. So it's through Buddha's compassion to teach the Dhamma to those so that they too can achieve fearlessness. The Buddha's fearlessness is another quality that he illustrated. Fearlessness, equanimity, meaning 舍, 慈悲喜舍的舍, to let go. In one story, his cousin Devadatta, very ambitious man, and he had achieved quite a bit with supernatural powers. He thought that he was qualified to lead the Sangha. And the Buddha at this point was old now. And Devadatta says, Lord, why don't you retire? I'll take over the Sangha for you, so you don't have to worry about it. The Buddha rejected and said, I would never, under any circumstance, to turn it over to you. So publicly, he was very embarrassed. He felt offended. He resolved to take the Buddha's life. One time, he conspired with Ajatatsu, a very wicked king, and they bribed the king's elephant trainer to release a mad elephant in the Buddha's path. The elephant was running towards the Buddha, and the Buddha was able to subside, calm down the elephant. Some scriptures says that the Buddha uses supernatural power to subdue the elephant. So that was a failure on Devadatta's part, trying to kill the Buddha. Another time he climbed up to the Vulture's Peak with a big boulder, big rock. He knew that the Buddha would often take that path. So as he saw the Buddha coming, he pushed down this boulder, and the boulder was bouncing on the hill there. Luckily, it missed, and only a small splinter of rock hit the Buddha's foot. So it missed. He missed again to kill the Buddha. Buddha's disciples, knowing this, were alarmed for the Buddha's safety. So they formed a sort of bodyguard, armed themselves with sticks to protect the Buddha. So during the night, the Buddha came out of the vihara, which is Jingse, and the Buddha came out and said, monks, what is this? What are you doing hanging around my monastery with sticks? He said, Lord, don't worry. We are here to protect you and to ensure that you are safe. The Buddha says, the Buddha needs no protection. Now go away, go to your dwellings. So they all melted away into the night. So the Buddha was courageous. When we study Buddhism, we should go beyond the form. Go beyond the form, but to see the conditionality behind it and to have no fear.